Victory Monday, Browns fans. Yeah, they're 3-10. I don't care. This is probably the last win of the season, and I'm going to enjoy every freaking second of it. Welcome to the Doghouse, your inside look at the Cleveland Browns. I'm Andy McNamara, alongside Browns insider from WKYC Sports in Cleveland, Matt Florjancic. Johnny did it. Blaine Gabbert sucks. The 49ers stink, and the Browns offense and defense came alive some way, somehow. Matt, I'm putting the blinders on for at least the start of the show, and as a one-off, this team looked and did exactly everything that they were supposed to do from day one.
Yeah, it was nice to finally see them put a full game together. Granted, it was against the 49ers, who are probably just as hapless as the Browns are right now, but at this point in the season, you want to win. You don't want to cheer for your team to lose, to just get draft position. Really, with the top picks in the draft, 1 through probably 6 or 7 are interchangeable anyway, so I say screw it, take the win, enjoy it for 7 days, and then get ready for a Seattle game that, by and large could be a bit of a challenge.
You know what? That is a very, very nice way to say it. We're going to get into Seattle, who, by the way, absolutely destroyed the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. They're clicking at the right time and look like they're back in Super Bowl form. But you know what, Matt? We're going to get to that. We'll get to more of that on Friday's show, and we can get worried and depressed. And I want to get into why this team came alive. And you know what? Yes, we can look at the fact that the 49ers are absolutely terrible. Their fall from grace from appearing in the Super Bowl has been astounding. Blaine Gabbert, to me, worst quarterback in the National Football League. Just straight up. And that's why, if you look, that's why you always take stats with a grain of salt. He had a higher quarterback ranking than Johnny Manziel at one touchdown, 96.4 rating. You always take those with a grain of salt because he has shown from the blip of success that the Niners had against the Chicago Bears that he is just awful, and that Niners team has a long way to go. So we take that into account. But, Matt, let's start with the running game. Where did Isaiah Crowell's 145-yard rushing game and 2 touchdowns come from? Nobody on planet Earth would have seen that coming.
Well, I wish I had the answer because then I'd be able to help him find it. But it was a much needed effort out of him, and it was great to see because, quite frankly, the running game was depressing all season long, and to think that you had to rely solely on the arm of Manziel, we've seen what that's resulted in. A 31-10 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, a 30-9 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was really just one of those days where everything literally came together at the right time. To me, it was a good day, but it was a day of what could have been.
Yeah.
Because if they played with the same kind of effort, thinking that they were going to win a game earlier in the year, we could have had a pretty decent season. Now, would we have been in the playoffs? No, absolutely not. But the games would have been far more competitive. They would have been far more tolerable to watch, and they might have saved a few coaches their jobs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think we're past that point of no return, and a win is a win right now, but I think there's too much water underneath the bridge, and I think the bridge is about flooded out.
Well, Matt, when you hear Mike Pettine's post-game comments in the locker room, like it's almost like he didn't know what to say with the win, and there was no music playing, like they weren't prepared for victory. It's like, oh, there's no music. It's about the scoreboard. It just seems so. You know what, Mike Pettine, by all, I've never met the man, but Mike Pettine, by all accounts, seems like a nice man, and he got his 10th. He's in the double-digit coaching win club in the National Football League. His 10th career head coach win, and likely his last ever win as an NFL head coach. So you feel good. You can just sum this up for a day. For the home fans, Matt, there were tons of empty seats there. But for the fans that came out, for the ones that watched on TV, it made you for a moment. Yeah, it might affect draft position, but for a moment you felt good being a Browns fan. Like, you can go outside and the sun's shining, you put your Browns cap on, and you can feel good for a couple days. Then you can realize that the Seattle Seahawks are probably going to take your head off. But they were able to harness all that. And, Matt, I don't want to put – this is what stood out to me a little bit about the running game and the tremendous pocket protection. Like, San Francisco has its problems, but their pass rush is still decent. Like, the O-line, for some reason, showed up and showed out. I don't want to put so much credit on the shoulders of a backup left guard, but that's the only difference in who was it, Pastor? The left guard there seems like a road grader dude. Yeah, like, again, I'm not putting the success on a backup left guard, but he's the only difference. Like, how much of a difference did he make?
Well, it was a noticeable one because I always evaluate offensive line penalties on one thing. Okay, if you're going to get a hold, I don't want to see my quarterback picking himself up off the field.
Right.
Okay? And when Austin Pastor got a hold, they got a 19-yard gain. So, yeah, you lost 19 yards, but your quarterback didn't get killed.
Right.
So
right.
It was a positive step for a team that has next to no positive steps going for them right now. So I kind of say it tongue-in-cheek, but I'm dead serious about it. When you get called for an illegal play, you better damn well make sure nobody gets hurt on that play.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been a weak spot of the Browns for a very long time. Joe Thomas, when he commits a hold on the edge, usually the quarterback still gets hit.
Right.
Austin Pastor cleared the way a little illegally, but, it was a 19-yard gain. So I look at that and say, all right, that's a positive difference. I know it's a hold is a hold and you still lose yardage, but I'd rather lose yardage off of a positive gain than a negative loss because it really exacerbates every problem. And Pastor by no means played a perfect game, but there were some big holes for Crowell to run through on that left side of San Francisco's defense, and that's where Pastor was. And there were a couple times where he scooted through a hole, and Duke Johnson did the same thing where they waited, and then they made one cut behind Pastor, and they were gone.
Matt, you're right. It was through the left side, even on the right side a few times as well, but that left side, and he's a big, nasty-looking dude, and you hear that term road grader, especially around draft time. What type of lineman is he? Is he a road grader? Can he push? And the Browns really went away from that zone scheme that we thought was going to carry over with Kyle Shanahan, which is a little bit more about athleticism and finesse. Tried going for the plow it up the middle style, and they just didn't really have the personnel or the coaching to do that. Austin Pastor seems like the type of guy that is perfect for that type of offense, and I think goes to show again, if you can scout talent and get the right type of fit for your offense, you don't need to spend a first-round pick on a jack-of-all-trades, master of lineman like a Cam Irving, who, despite his height, is not very strong and was benched.
Yeah, well, that is why it scares me to hear that Ray Farmer will survive any changes rather than Mike Pettin, because his evaluation totally sucks. And granted, some of that's on the coaches too, not getting the most out of their players. But still, like you can't give. And I heard this in a press conference a couple weeks ago, and I had to bite my tongue because it was absolutely ludicrous to hear a coach say this. But talking about developing talent, they were talking about Christian Kirksey. And Jim O'Neill said, look, in 2 or 3 more years, this kid's going to be an every down linebacker. And I thought silently to myself, you're not going to be around here to find out how good of a linebacker he is. And what the hell is a 2-14 team, or now 3 and potentially 3-13 team, doing drafting players who can't play for 4 years? It doesn't work. So when we get a guy like Austin Pastor who had to work his way through the undrafted free agent route, and he usurps a number 1 first-round draft pick, I'm okay with that. I want the hungriest dude in the yard coming out and trying to play hard. I don't want a first-round pick that thinks he's gifted something. I could give a crap whether you came first round, 7th round, undrafted, whatever. If you're going to show up and you're going to play, you're going to play for me, and that's what I want to see. I don't want to see any of this, we got to play him because he's a first. I don't care if he was a first-round pick. I don't care if we've got to see what you've got, because if he can't start from day one on a team that hasn't had a winning season since 2007, I don't need to see what he can do.
Yeah. Because
that tells me all I need to know. So to see a guy go out there and actually make some holes for somebody, it was a nice thing to see.
It was so foreign to Browns fans. You're listening to The Doghouse, your inside look at the Cleveland Browns. I'm Andy McNamara alongside Matt Fleur-Jancic. You can find us on iTunes, at iHeartRadio. We have the Google and Android app. You can get us as well as on Spreaker.com. So lots of ways to get involved with us on Twitter, also at AndyMC81, at Matt Fleur-Jancic. And our Twitter question today is Johnny Manziel now 2-2 as a starter. So what does that mean? What does the one game do to change your mind, if it does at all, for Johnny Manziel? Does this win, does that one game for Johnny change your mind of what he is to the Browns as a long-term option, or are you satisfied that, hey, I've seen enough, he's not very good, or whatever? So at AndyMC81, at Matt Fleur-Jancic, as we talk on a very rare Victory Monday here on The Doghouse. And it is, yeah, you know what? We got to give it up, Matt. It's not very often. Not very often we get to do this. That it is a Victory Monday, and we get to celebrate a little bit on the show. And again, if you just take this as a game onto itself, just block out the rest of the season on its own, this is what we were told the Browns were going to be. Hard-running, smash mouth football, tough defense. They got 9 sacks, Matt. That was for a single game, tied for second all time for a Browns team to get 9 sacks in a single game. And you have Nate Orchard showed up with 2 sacks, a draft pick. You had Dante Whitner get a sack. You had Almonte Bryant get a pair of sacks. Like, people were just showing up. What still stood out to me, Matt, and I don't know why this sticks in my head. So we saw Nate Orchard get a couple sacks and look good when, hey, surprise, surprise, you drafted him to rush the passer, so when you actually send guys to get the quarterback, they do well, is that he was still dropped back on one play against Anquan Bolden. And Brady Quinn, former Browns quarterback who was doing the analysis on the game, just pointed it out, said, like, essentially, what are you doing? Why are you having this guy cover one of the most efficient receivers in the league? There's still that, despite how good this game is, you still see that, and it just reminds you why this coaching staff needs to go.
Yeah, it does. It's really disgusting because they did the same thing with Paul Kruger, too. They've got a great elite pass rusher, and what do? They put him in a position where he has to cover an all-pro wide receiver. Our cornerbacks can't do that. You're going to expect a edge rushing linebacker to do it? Yeah. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. It's mismanagement. It's creating holes for the sake of creating holes in the defense. And, you know, they take away from strengths and make them further weaknesses to try and bolster something else, and they're still weak at that too. So instead of having one hole, you've created 2, and that's the only thing that the Browns have been successful at doing for the majority of the season, and that's creating holes for opponents.
Right. Well, Matt, and we saw when they got after the quarterback how much better the secondary looked, how much better Trayvon Williams looked when the quarterback had to rush his throws. Like, it makes so much sense that why this was not being done to begin with is baffling. Now, Paul Kruger he did not have a tackle yesterday. Now, he pressured the quarterback a whole bunch of times, and all in all, I thought still had a good game from a pressure standpoint. But the fact that this shows that if you let the people who you have on your team do what they do well and put them in positions to succeed, you will have success. Like, I'm just afraid when they're going up against Seattle, wait for the quote-unquote creativity of Jim O'Neill coming about, and we're just going to see players looking at themselves. And Russell Wilson, he threw 5 touchdowns on Sunday, throw for 6 or 7 against us next week. Like, it just seems weird. But Matt, when you looked at that defense, did that point to you that maybe Mike Pettin took